You may have noticed when you go to add materials that you have the option not only of adding tests or quizzes, but adding an assessment. So that's what we're going to work on today. This is basically a new feature of Schoology, which will eventually replace the add test quiz feature. What they plan to do is incorporate and kind of merge the two of these together. I've been assured by Schoology that any work that's created under tests and quizzes will automatically work once they make the transition to assessments. So I'm going to say I'm going to add an assessment. It kind of looks the same as similar as to when you start with creating a test or a quiz. You have to do a title for it. You would determine how many points the assessment is worth and assign a due date to it. Currently, the default is that the student submissions are disabled. This means it's not currently viewable for students to see and actually take the assessment at this time. When you're ready for students to take it, you can either enable it or you can set dates from which the assessment will be available for students to use. I'm going to leave it on disable for right this minute. You can also add a password to assessments. You do need to assign a grading category. I'm going to call this one a quiz. And we'll talk a little bit more about grading categories when we do the school tools setup section. And then my grading scale I'm going to leave as numeric. There is an advanced section as well that shows you how to create new grading scales if you'd like to. Right now I'm just going to say that this is published to students so they can see that there's an assessment there. They just won't be able to take it because I have it disabled. So I'm going to say create. And this brings me to the assessment section. And you're going to notice that there's 3 tabs. There's a setup tab, a questions tab, and the student attempts tab. You also have a preview button over here so that you can always preview what your questions look like to students as you move along. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add instructions for the question or for the test itself. So you can add instructions here. You can also change any of your settings. I'll just write instructions here. Whoops, sorry. Did not want to turn on the view source. Okay. The assessment settings, you can set a time limit for the assessment. You can randomly order the questions. So you can change these depending on your own preferences. You can also allow students to be able to flag questions. So if they want to go back and review a question during the taking of the assessment, you would click yes if you want to allow that. Eliminate choices allows them to digitally cross out answers. There's also some in this section, there are some online tools that Schoology allows you to have students use, and that wouldn't be like a graphing calculator, a ruler, or a protractor. So you can say yes, you want those or need those for your assessment if it's applicable. There's also a text-to-speech toolbar that you can make available to students as well. So if you have students who need that, where they might need to do a dictation of their answers, you can do that too. Student settings. So do you want students to be able to view their results immediately? Do you want them to be able to take the test more than one time? Once you've changed the settings to the way you want them, you would go ahead and hit save. And it's been saved. And now we're ready to add some questions. So I'm going to click on the questions tab. And you'll notice on the left-hand side that you just have more options here. There's options for, some of the same tests and quizzes that you saw in the last section, like multiple choice, true, false, matching and ordering, that fill in the blank. So, let me just put multiple choice. It's kind of similar setup where to the other section, it just looks a little bit different, where you would write your question and you would type in your answers. You can either delete choices or not here. You can add your settings to this, and you can preview questions as well. So it's very similar to what we did in the last section. It's just a slightly different menu. Where it becomes a little bit more interesting is some of the other interesting options you have for doing different types of questions. Like, for instance, you could do a label and image question, or there's specific math tools that you can use for math questions, including number lines, and you can have image highlight, like hotspots, so that when students hover over an image, it highlights the different sections of the image. We're going to actually, just for today, this video, I'm going to do a label image question. So when I click on that, the first thing I'm going to do is write my question, and it's going to say label the parts of a plant below. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload an image that I want them to use. And I've already saved this image on my computer. So I'm going to bring that in. There it is. I'm just going to say OK. And now here is my actual. I'm going to just title this parts of a plant. And there's the image that I uploaded. Okay, now what I'm going to need to do is create response boxes so the students can fill this out on the test. So when I click a response box, I'm going to add this to where I want them to add a label. And I need a response box for each one of the parts of the plant that I want them to label. That's going to be number 3, number 2's here. And I believe I need one more. Let's just scroll down a little. Yep, and I got to label the roots down here. Okay, so now that I've got my response boxes on the image, I'm going to get rid of this number 5. That was a mistake. So you can just X next to it if you need to. Oops, I think I may have rearranged these the wrong way. Let me put 1, 2. It doesn't really matter the order that you put these in, but I'm a little bit anal and like to have them numbered the correct way, especially since I kind of made a mess of this when I was just doing this a minute ago. So I've got 4 response boxes. Now I have to choose the possible responses. So I'm going to say, what are the options? What could students possibly respond for the parts of a plant? Okay, so I need to choose the options. Now I'm going to fill in what my possible answers could be. So my possible answers could be flower, stem, leaf, root. And if you notice, you don't have to use text for this. Anything could be a possible answer. Could be a math equation. It could be another image. It could be any type of media that you want. I might add a couple of options just to kind of throw people off here. So I will just make some stuff up here, just so that we have a couple of extra options and make it a little bit harder and more challenging for students. And really, okay. Once I've added my options, I am going to label I'm going to actually complete the quiz to show which answers should be in which box. So the first box, flower, should be the correct answer. The second box, it should be stem. The third box should be leaf. And the fourth should be root. So this is what a 100% correct response will look like. And I can decide whether it can be partial match, exact match. Mine has to be exact matches. And I can put any additional notes or align learning objectives if I wanted to. Once I've done this, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, and I notice that I have one question now as part of my quiz. So if I want to preview this, is to see what it would look like from what students would see, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to start a new attempt. And here's the first question. And when I'm a student, I'm going to label what I think is correct. I'll get one wrong here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is hit review. And to review the question, it will basically what it's going to do is, I'm not in student mode right now, so this is just a preview and it's really not going to be saved or shown to anyone else. But this is basically how the test question is going to look to a student. When you go to student attempts, once you have members selected in your class, much like the test and quiz section, you will see each student and you'll be able to click on their name and you'll be able to view each one of their attempts and grade accordingly with the grade boxes to the right hand side. So this is this again, you also do have up in the top right corner that whole view statistics section, so you can see the stats on how your entire class did on the assessment, as well as you can look at the stats for each question of the assessment. So you can save your assessments to resources to reuse them, but currently they cannot be added to question banks.